Today, a ring of fire solar eclipse will darken a large portion of the Northern Hemisphere. This beautiful eclipse will look a lot like the ring of fire eclipse that happened when the Death Star covered the sun in this Star Wars movie saga. Is this a sign from God? Well, probably not this time. But can solar eclipses be a sign from God? That's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Solar eclipses happen when the moon moves directly between the sun and the earth, casting a shadow on our planet and blocking out at least part of the sun's light. Today at sunrise, we can look forward to what is called an annular solar eclipse, which occurs when the moon is further away from the earth in its orbit and isn't able to completely block out the sun like it does during a total solar eclipse. Instead, it leaves the outer ring of the sun exposed, creating the appearance of a ring of fire in the sky. It's quite striking. It's not going to look like your regular sun. Jackie Faraday, an astrophysicist at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, said to Space.com, "Today's partial eclipse will look like the Death Star is in front of the sun as it's rising," she said, referring to the moon-sized space weapon from Star Wars. Now, a more famous set of total solar eclipses, 7 years apart, will make an X-shaped sign across the USA. They are sometimes referred to as the X marks the spot solar eclipses. The first happened in August 2017, about a month prior to the September 23rd sign in Virgo. You remember, the one that stirred up the prophetic community. The second is scheduled to happen April 2024. Now, no major American cities are located where the two eclipses cross. But, there are a couple decent-sized cities in that area: Carbondale and Marion, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky, and Farmington, Missouri. What does this mean, though? Some view this as a sign from God that He is going to X out the USA. Well, it could mean that. But the letter X carries a very different meaning in the Bible. In Hebrew, the letter X is the letter tau, which is a cross symbol. In Greek, which is the language used in the New Testament, X is the letter chi, which is a prefix which also means cross. That would then be the opposite of destruction. It would be salvation. According to some scholars, though, a solar eclipse can be a sign of destruction. Christian evangelist Anne Graham Lotz, who's the daughter of Billy Graham, said the X marks the spot eclipses are a definitive sign that God's severe judgment is coming on America. She reports a, quote, deep conviction that God is warning America of impending disaster and destruction. This channel isn't sure that a conviction is enough to make something a sign. However, solar eclipses are not average or normal anywhere else in the universe. It would probably shock you to know that Earth is the only known planet in the universe to have a solar eclipse, and it is an exact scientific relationship between the sun and the moon that makes this possible. Our sun is a rather average star in the universe, not all that unusual, but the moon is completely unique, possibly the strangest satellite circling any planet that humans have encountered. Compared in size to its planet, the moon is a giant. It's a fourth the size of the Earth, making it almost kind of like a dual planetary system. Both the moon's dominance in the night sky and then its regular cycle of phases have provided the basis of the Hebraic calendar. The English word moon comes from the word month. There is a relation between moon and month. The moon is also one of the closest moons in respect to the planet. But what really makes the eclipse possible is the relationship of its size to the sun and their relative distance. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, and the sun is 400 times more distant. This exact parallel makes them appear nearly the same size in the sky. Thus, on occasion, the moon will totally obscure the sun in an eclipse. This size arrangement cannot be random chance. God set up this arrangement. So it is a sign, but of what? Pastor Mark Biltz had this to say: from a biblical point of view, a solar eclipse is meant to be a sign from God. In Genesis 1:14, God declared this to be so. Well, he actually said the sun and the moon were signs, but Biltz continues. It is a sign beyond man's control, something he can't manipulate. And we completely agree. Biltz continues, as the sun is larger than the moon, the sun represents the nations of the world, and the moon represents the nation of Israel, as their calendar months are based on the cycles of the moon, while the nations of the world follow the sun for their calendar. Biltz is actually correct about who follows what for the calendar. Whether they actually correspond to this, well, it's an interesting theory. Biltz continues, when there is a total eclipse, it is a warning for the specific nation or nations that are in its path. Well, that's Biltz's opinion. However, this channel hasn't seen any such correlation in the past between eclipses and judgment on a specific nation. Overall, however, God has used the darkening of the sun in the Egyptian plagues as a punishment. He used the darkening of the sun on the day of the cross as a sign, and he will darken the sun and moon together at the sixth seal. Now, none of these were eclipses. They were all supernatural darkening. However, God definitely uses the darkening of the sun. But in every one of these major uses in the Bible, someone is judged and someone is spared. In Egypt, the Egyptians were judged and the Israelites were freed. At the cross, Jesus took our punishment on himself, but we were given grace and salvation. And after the six seal signs, first Christians will be raptured, and then the wrath of God will be poured out on unbelievers. It's a consistent pattern throughout Scripture. So if you see that eclipse today, choose the grace of God. It is much better than his punishment. But there is no specific link between a solar eclipse in the Bible and God's wrath or his grace. Now, ancient peoples associated solar eclipses with disaster, but we shouldn't be quite so sure. Interestingly, however, some people think that they can even play God on our world with the sun. Click right here to watch how billionaire Bill Gates thinks he can dim the sun to prevent global warming, and what end-time consequences his actions might bring. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.